ook zo met het gebeurt. Maar ik weet niet waar het allemaal gewoon. Als dat niet kan. Dit is heel
Yes, it's actually.
de eerste termijn toetsen dat we dus dan met dit verband doen. Net voor de bank van het verschil. Daar is eerder een toets dat ik letterlijk geleerd van gaan.
Dit is eigenlijk
Eigenlijk dit ons niks. Of in niks niet man.
Imagine we had to run to the man.
That's enough to do.
Because it's you now.
You won't go. You won't go.
I'm going to go for it.
Huh?
I'm here. Less than
But that brings me to a different subject in itself. Isn't this going to be better in the long run for you, not just learning like a parent?
Yeah, because some of the questions you have to actually think about it.
We are probably, you'll see that the format of the questions and the structure of the questions are going to change to ensure that you think about it, because we know what you should know, you have available.
Yeah.
You might even have it on a little monitor here, and you just flip through your slides. Everybody's circumstances are different, but the fact is, I think we'll find that we as assessors are going to become, or expected to become, more creative even with the way in which we structure questions. So at least we find that balance between the time available and the time that you actually take, because I don't want a 3-hour paper for students after half an hour to yawn in the exam. You have to wait for an hour to finish. No, then something's wrong. Then they either didn't prepare, or your paper was too easy.
Als je de tekst moet schrijven, wanneer je er nog aan schrijf met een van school af.
Wat net meer tyd om die vraag te lees. Ek kan nog steeds vinnig skryf.
Ja, as ek my vraag kry, dan lees ek eers my vraag weer en dan kan ek antwoord dit weer en dan ek weet dan my vraag te maak.
Okay, we're all back online. For those in front of me and those at home, this letter that I'm showing you now is the one that you'll receive, or that is already on Moodle, but it is just hidden for you. It will be available for you to read on Friday, because your exam is on Monday. The reason why I'm showing you this is there's a few things that I want to specifically highlight that's related to the paper. A, it's 150 marks, as it shows right there in the top right corner of the screen. It is on the 26th, which is next Monday, and it's a 3-hour paper. While we're on that subject of 3 hours, your paper is available to you as an online quiz between 8 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon.
What?
Exactly. For those playing the home game, what Deirdre has pointed out now is exactly what I wanted you to understand, and that is that you have 4 hours between 8 in the morning and 12 midday, not 12 o'clock at night. You've got 4 hours. In other words, you basically have 2 time slots that you can start the exam. You start at 8 o'clock when it becomes available, or you start at 9. Anytime after 9, you will still be permitted to write a test, but you're going to have less time. You won't have the full 3 hours. So please make a mental note of that. If you're not a morning person, tough. Get up early on Monday morning. Your exams for this semester is in the morning between 8 and 12. Because it's a 3-hour paper, rather get there bright and early. The nice thing about this for me as an assessor is the fact that I can actually start marking from 12 o'clock already, which means that the marks will be at the moderator very quickly, which I prefer, because that means that if anybody qualifies for a supplementary, it will be available much sooner than in the past for you to know if you have to prepare. But again, the content of the paper itself will, as we progress, people, I'm not going to spend time on the paper and give you a breakdown. And section A is so, section B is that question, so this is that chapter. No, you have to prepare all 15 chapters, and you're going to get a variety of questions like you have with your previous online quizzes. Multiple choice, matching columns, true or false, case study related questions, describe and explain. I don't think there's an essay question in this one though. But as I said, I stand to be corrected. I will look at the paper again before we have our last session on Thursday. Importantly, however, for me is that everything, although it is in 2 sections, is in the same quiz. So you don't have to leave the particular quiz to go to section B. It's all section A and B is in the same online quiz. Yep. Nope. So you're not limited, your time is not limited or restricted to a section. You've got 3 hours to complete section A and B. Right. I want to share a different screen now because we are going to go into our first revision, and that will be chapter 1. Yo. Ek kan die lig afsit. Ek het net vergeet. Dit's baie jammer. Okay, for the students at home, and at the moment it's just Neelan, chapter 1 deals with, chapter 1 is the introduction to personal selling. I'll go through every single chapter in this fashion, and I'll highlight the aspects that I think is more important than others. Although everything is important, but some things are clearer than others as to their importance or not. Right. The history of personal selling, people, don't be concerned about that. Read that as a nice to know. I don't even think there's any questions from that. It's one of the oldest sales. Sales is one of the oldest professions in the world. Not initially, obviously, money for products or services, but a product for another product, or 2 cows for three chicken or something like that. It is one of the oldest professions that dates back to the early days, where especially children and women were sold to the Egyptians, to the pharaoh to use as slaves. So it's not anything new. Personal selling today, I think we have seen over semester 3 and 4, it has evolved a great deal. We've reached that point where artificial intelligence is actually not something of the future, it is current. We're using all the basic traditional techniques of assessing the client's needs to try and pitch your presentation in the form of a product or service that will satisfy that need of the customer. So you can make a sale, you can retain that customer by good follow-up and after-sales service, and eventually convert them into loyal customers, then you've achieved your goal as a salesperson. Don't see the sale as the end result. Repeated sales and eventual loyal customers still remains your main objective. Right. If we look at the advantages, disadvantages of personal selling, you're not going to get a question in the paper that says, give me 5 advantages and name 5 disadvantages. For general knowledge and for a more complete overall picture of what personal selling is about, read through this particular section. Impact of selling as a profession on the economy. We know that it does drive the economy. There's no point in anybody or a business manufacturing a lot of stuff if there's nobody to tell the customers that it is available. How would you know if the new Samsung Dual Flex is available if you're not told? So the marketing effort put in by a particular brand or company goes hand in hand with the sales. Not to confuse marketing and sales. Sales is actually the activity that ensures that that message that was sent out by marketing that's reached the customer is followed up and actually results in a sale. And that's the main difference between marketing and sales. It's a combined effort. It's a supportive effort where marketing can't just continue marketing and promotions and commercials and giving away free samples and vouchers and doing demos if no salesperson is there to follow up and actually close the sale. I mean, imagine they come with a huge drive and you are so excited, but where do I find the stuff? I don't see it on the shelves. People, that's even worse than actually having a great product in the first place, not being able to buy it. The selling cycle, you can probably take as the important component from chapter 1. You have already been questioned in this regard as to what the 10 steps are. So if in previous tests or assignments you have been asked to list the steps, you're probably, if you receive it if you receive a similar question again, you would be probably expected to apply it to a particular case study. Reason why we've done the selling cycle in chapter 1 is also because it guides the rest of the module, because every single chapter that follows basically represents a particular step in the selling cycle, right up to the close and the follow-up. Any questions at this point? Nobody. This is the most simplest. Je kan pretty much jy kan dit so sê as dit nou kom van uit 'n vraag oogpunt, ja. Which step is important? More important than the other? Unfortunately, there is no one. Hulle is almal. Almal is belangrik. For careers in sales, just again be aware of the different types of careers that's available, but don't spend too much time on your preparation efforts on that particular section. I think what you see on the screen is self-explanatory. I would, in preparation for the exam on Monday, read through chapter 1, and I will focus on the steps in the selling cycle. Because the remaining components this particular chapter just summarizes in general what sales is about and what your potential career opportunities and income potential is. The great people who are really good in sales are really making a lot of money. The one thing, and specifically on that slide that's in front of us, is the ethical issues. I think everybody who has seen The Wolf of Wall Street would know that he would probably have sold his family just to make an extra buck, and it probably cost him his family, and it cost him, his career as well. Because sometimes there's a very fine line between making a sale and the manner in which you conduct it. I find it very difficult. I can sell, but I find it very difficult. It was very early on in my life that I was involved in sort of retail selling as part of a larger function of what I did. And I honestly, I was confronted with that moral dilemma of, I know this item is not the best item there is at that price. I know of better products. I find it very difficult to sell that product to a person then. Honestly, that's just my nature. I could close a sale. I can use all the techniques. I didn't have a problem making a sale or closing a sale. I just find it very hard to sell something that I didn't believe in myself or didn't use myself. And that's probably that's probably one of the important things for any salesperson to have, is that kind of ability to, or I would suggest, use the product. Then you don't have to fixate a story to sell a benefit or a feature, because you can actually, you've benefited from it yourself. So it's easier to explain if you know that it works.
No, I had actually gister 'n ding gesien op Instagram, maar ek kan nou nie die uitsnaam wat hy man dink hy's 'n basketbalspeler. En toe sê hy net, hy het sy skoene gemaak, maar hy het skoene gekoop wat soos affordable is. Toe sê hy hy het onthou hoe lank dit was, toe sê hy oor die 200 miljoen rand skoene gekoop aan mense wat dit kan kos. Toe sê hy, soos mense kan maar lag, want almal is die bekende mense wat op die bierskoene wil hê, wat het almal op gekoop, maar niemand koop dit reg aan hulle geld. Toe sê hy, so hy maak eerder skoene vir mense wat dit kan kos.
It is, and I think as jy dit is baie keer wat, en inderdaad your celebrities are not going to these brands and say, listen, you know I am. I'll be the brand ambassador for your product. No. The companies go out and they search for celebrities and high profile individuals to use. And it comes at a cost, because you've got to pay that person. He's not getting paid if they sell 10 shoes or 20 shoes or 5,000 shoes. He's getting paid a fixed amount regardless how many shoes are sold. They're just hoping that their sales will increase as a result of a specific celebrity endorsing it, and as a result of that, people thinking, well, if he's using it, it must be good. Or look how he plays, that's because he's using those shoes.
I weet ek van jou sien, ek weet ook julle hy het soos geel Crocs, stickers op wat mense koop, ek weet nie van rande.
Ja.
Ek jammer, maar dit is belaglik. Dan kan ek China kan ek gaan ook geel Crocs koop, vir 20 rand. Ek produce shoes
Yeah.
Still produce stuff that he sells.
Ja, mense, en ons mense dan nog weer wat koop, ek weet nie, ek weet wat kos, maar ek kan goed koop, dis maar mense belaglik.
Ek hoor Crocs is nou weer in. Crocs is actually back. Crocs is huge now all of a sudden. Seriously? I mean, I thought it was.
Altyd by ons in die hoërskool dra die meisies krop, maar nou nie soos met die gaatjies nie, dat lyk soos 'n toeskewende bandjie, maar dit lyk eintlik nogal soos 'n ding.
I have to admit, yes, at some point I was wearing those. I would never the ones with the holes. Never fancied that. But there are Crocs that you would not say it's a Croc if you didn't actually know it was a Croc. It actually looks like a proper shoe. Obviously, the same kind of the same sole, and I think that's what the benefit is because it feels like you're walking on cushions the whole day.
My pa dra krop, nou nie die gaatjies nie, en aan die een wat toe is bo, net gaatjies langs die kant en dan ook 'n bandjie agter.
I have to admit, if you wear it with a pair of jeans and nobody really notices it, it looks like any other nice shoe. I can guarantee, ja. Het moet wees, hulle is heel lag op hulle voete en even mos en dat. Yeah, it's probably just that. Yeah. And now there's one. I bought a pair of Crocs in New York for my son from the Croc store because I knew that there's certain limited edition shoes or Crocs that you will only find there. It's not even going to reach our shores. They're not going to sell it here. The market's not big enough. He was very much into Star Wars at that stage, and the soles of the shoes actually made the sound of one of those sabers, as well as obviously the lights. And at the age of 7, 8, 9, I mean, that's cute and that's cool. He enjoys it. And it's comfortable shoes. You know, at least they're going to have comfortable shoes. But because very often, domestic challenges that you have at that age is because they're barefoot the whole time. I would walk barefoot my whole life if I can. But I mean, it's frowned upon. The fact is, it's the most comfortable. These editions that we've been given, they're great. And they need to get in there. But anyway, yes, with them at that age, the feet is always bumping something or stepping into something or cutting, whatever. So having a shoe like that, brilliant.
My sister is now groot toe. Sy dra nie skoene nie. Sy speel buite in die straat, dus dan kom sy aan by die huis en sy sê my maagvoet is my maagvoet op haar tone onder ook gebars. Sy wil net skoene dra.
Yeah, I think where Crocs went a bit wrong was when you see these 40, 50-year-olds on the beach with a Speedo and then Crocs. And I know during the December holiday everything goes, but seriously, no, that's just, sorry. I just go straight home if I see something like that on the beach. Direct selling, people, not to be confused, is a form of personal selling. Remember, direct selling is one of those components of the marketing mix. Promotions, direct selling, commercials, advertising, vouchers. Those are all forms of the marketing communications mix, but very often direct selling and personal selling is confused.
Hier op bladsy E11 is ons grys gedeelte. Ek sal sien waar lê direct selling, dis nie belangrik nie. Dis maar net geïnteresseerd om
Net om 'n bietjie meer uit te brei en te verduidelik, ja. Don't stress about that.
Dis is voor het direct selling should not be confused with direct marketing transfers and direct.
Yes, it often is, and that's the reason why they state it, and they just basically embroidered on it by giving you a nice explanation. We've addressed the ethical issues of selling when I refer to the Wolf of Wall Street. Are you? A lot of people say you're not a hardcore salesperson if you can't sell something that you don't even use yourself or don't believe in. You're just after making the sale. Yeah, it's everybody's nature and character is different in that regard. It's something that I found very difficult to do.
As jy ethical is just belangrik om te monitor.
The whole of chapter 1 is just a nice introduction to personal selling, understand where it fits in and what it shouldn't be confused with, and then what the 10 steps are that we follow to ensure that we make a proper sale.
Sal van dit wees in die mark insurance.
Very easily. These kind of chapters usually end up with yeah, questioned in that specific manner.
More substantial, in-depth core points that aren't in the master. It's more like the last part, eerie
Yes.
ones that are more.
Yes, or for instance, if there are 5 steps in a specific process, but you don't want to, you've asked it in so many different ways. You now just add it to a matching column A with column B to just make it slightly different, or you ask which of the following are not one of the steps in this process, and then you list everything, and then probably there's one that doesn't belong there. So it's again the essential components that I've always said. Look at what the heading of the chapter is. If it says prospecting is what this chapter is about. What is the golden thread that runs through that particular chapter? What's important of prospecting? If another one is preparing for a sales call, it will include the steps in preparation, the approach, and everything. So the chapter heading itself says what the chapter is about and what the important component in that chapter is. Right. We've reached the end of chapter 1.
Maar as ons voorberei en as jy discussion questions op gesolf beantwoord sal ek ons op jou.
Yes. That's what I liked about the particular manual that we use. They have a nice little discussion questions, and I think there's even multiple choice questions at the back. It's just let me put it to you straight. I didn't use any of the questions in the textbook at the end of each chapter in any of my papers or exams. But to prepare you for the way in which questions can be structured and asked, it is a very good exercise to go through, and it's a form of revision for yourself. Chapter 2, let's go to the consumer and the buying process. The consumer and the buying process, again, in the bigger context of what personal selling is about, is probably also not the most important chapter. The reason for that is because most of you have already, in marketing or business marketing in the first semester, have already been exposed to the steps, the 5 steps that the consumer goes through when making a decision to purchase. It's along those lines that this particular chapter is structured. And I think more important is to second paragraph there on the screen. The salesperson needs to understand what the need and the problem or objective is, and show the customer that their product or service will fulfill that need, problem, or objective. That remains your major objective as a salesperson, to identify or establish a way that works for you, because everybody's different, that will enable you to identify more accurately what the actual need is of the customer. And here we'll see from chapter 3. Chapter 3 will be dealing with communication and the different methods, verbal, non-verbal communication. Very important is the skill of listening. Listening is part of the communication process. And if you really want to determine what the actual need is of the customer, or the problem that the customer is battling with, that you can actually offer a solution to, you will only get that from listening to what they say. If you are too rigid with your script that you've prepared in the process, in an attempt to sell a particular product, you're going to miss these cues that is given by the potential buyer, during which he tells you or she tells you exactly what actually they need. You have, I think, in the most recent assignment, I think we looked at FAB, the features, the advantages, and the benefits. Make sure that you are clear on what the features are, which usually refer to the physical characteristics of a product. If it's a vehicle, it's the air conditioning, it's the ABS brakes that the car have, the advantages that the specific feature gives you. What's the advantages of having ABS brakes on your car? The advantages of that specific feature is that you can brake so much quicker and safer in a dangerous situation. What's the benefit? The benefit is that you live longer because your family travel and whoever's traveling in a car with you will be safer because the brakes of your car is of the highest standard. So ensure that you understand what the feature is, what the advantage is that the customer will get from that specific feature, and how they will benefit from it. The benefit is actually at the end of the day the one that you want to sell. You'll start with the feature and telling them this is the feature. Okay, right, so how do I benefit from that? That's what usually can be an objection that is raised by a potential buyer.
Yeah, that's the advantage and the benefit of myself.
Dis baie na aan dieselfde. Dis baie na aan dieselfde. Right. The order in which you sell, we know that there are specific steps that we have in the selling cycle that we've identified in chapter 1. Make sure that you adapt for every situation because it can be different. I'm not suggesting that you skip certain of the steps in the cycle, but the more you repeat that particular cycle and the more experienced you become, and if it's a follow-up second or third call to a prospect, you're probably going to skip some of those questions because you don't have to do the pre-approach anymore because you've already established what the needs of the customer is. You are following up and you are now focusing maybe on the benefits from the start based on your previous conversations that you've had with that particular prospect. What's the difference between a prospect and a customer? Yep, and customers are?
Customers that will buy when you don't have to.
They bought already, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, and the reason why I'm asking this is, again, not to be nitpicking, but how you express yourself when answering a question can also make you lose marks if it's not done correctly. Very often, the mistake is made that a customer, because that person has bought already, is referred to as a prospect, and it's not. A prospect, all of us are prospects. We all have to, can be contacted, and we all have a need for a specific. The prospect who was qualified, in other words, who has the means to do it and who has the need for that product, is still not a customer. It's a qualified prospect. So you get prospects, then your qualified prospects, and then your customers, which are the person or the people who have bought the product that you have completed the whole selling cycle with. Maslow, I don't have to tell you much about Maslow. However, people, some students still get it wrong. It is a bottom-up order of need satisfaction. Physiological needs at the bottom needs to be satisfied first. If you're hungry and tired and thirsty, you're not going to focus very well. You're not going to bother if somebody climbs through your window because you don't have burglar bars. So the safety needs are not the issue for you. It is an issue, but it's not the prime issue. Okay? The order in which it happens is the order from the bottom up. Physiological, safety, social, esteem, self-actualization. So for instance, an example, somebody, where would you categorize a Virgin Active gym membership, for instance? For somebody who has a steady job, good education, average middle class South African. What about maybe social and belonging? Because it's people who, similar to you, what happens at a gym? Do people go to the gym to train, or do they go to the gym to socialize?
Socialize.
Exactly. Okay, so social and belonging needs. If you are somebody who is lower class, barely earn enough to put food on the table every month, a Virgin Active gym membership would be, where would you put it on that Maslow's hierarchy? Probably it's self-actualization, yes, because I mean, that's on your bucket list, but most things on your bucket list are things that you almost know is not going to happen. But it would be great if you, in other words, when you reach the top of Everest, you can't go much higher. This is where we are. You can't go higher. And that's exactly what self-actualization needs are. We've achieved everything else. So for somebody who are from, who lives in a shack without running water, who earns a wage, not a salary, for that person to actually eventually get gym membership at Virgin Active, it would be a self-actualization need that is satisfied, because that's a bucket list event in that particular scenario. Rightio, let's go to, so I'm browsing through everything for those guys online, Leland and Wandu. Nobody else has joined us yet? Nope, it's just the two of you still. Browsing through the chapters, I'm highlighting the aspects that I believe is more important than others. Social cultural factors, people, because you've done this already in marketing. Again, chapter 2 is similar to chapter 1. A nice read through to get a background on all the different influences that impact internally or externally on how decisions are made by consumers. Why do we need to know that in personal selling? Because you know that specific person is not the decision maker. So there's no point in steering your conversation in an attempt to close the sale by focusing very much on that particular individual, because that person is not the authority and is not going to be paying for this particular product or service. It would be like just going to the car dealership, sitting down with a sales consultant about the new car that he wants to buy, but his dad's actually going to buy it for him. But he needs to know what he wants in a vehicle. So he decided he's not going to wait for his dad, or he's going to go with his dad later on, but he wants to know himself first, which vehicles are the ones. So he's taken off some time and he decided to go to 3-4 different dealerships, sit down with the sales consultant, chat about the vehicle, go for a test drive. So when eventually dad is there as well, then it makes it easier because a lot of the research and groundwork has been done already. You've almost sort of made up your mind. So for those visits where the user and not the payer is in front of you, you are not going to focus that much on trying to close the sale. You are still going to just enhance the benefits and the advantages of all the different features that this particular vehicle has. Okay, you're not even going to talk finance to him. You're not even going to negotiate prices with this person. He's not going to pay. Eventually, when dad is also going with, now we know. Dad's the buyer. He's going to pay. Son's going to use the vehicle. You focus all the efforts on the person who actually is going to make the final decision and that you have to negotiate with, and who will have objections now because he has not been part of the entire exercise from the start. Okay. Chapter 2 is about an awareness, like it says there on that particular screen, and that that we have there. These are just the different influences or different factors that have an influence on culture. The fact is, culture is just one aspect of one factor that influences the way in which a consumer makes a decision. In total, people, we're going to write to the end of that chapter. Chapter 2, because you've done the majority of the work in the first semester in business marketing already, or introduction to marketing, you know most of this already. You know about social class. You know about the different reference groups. You know about the influence of family and culture on the decision making of, or how that influences decisions that customers take. So from personal selling point of view, this particular module, it is important just to know that these influences, external influences, can impact on the customer in front of you that you're trying to close a sale. Also realizing that that particular individual has certain internal factors that influences their decision, like their own perception based on their values and beliefs, or even religion on a particular product. What motivates you? Those are also internal factors that impact on, are you going to buy this decision or not? If I'm trying to sell a bottle of ice cold bottled water to somebody who's walked through the desert now and hasn't had anything to eat or drink, the need that needs to be satisfied and the need to actually have that fluid, that bottle of water, is very, very high. Okay, you'll almost do anything for it. Therefore, in that situation specifically, what motivates you to make a decision is basically you past 3 days experience of seeing the light, but fortunately not actually going to the light. The fact is, you're very thirsty, you want that water, that's a great motivator, regardless of whatever external influences is available, is present, it's not going to matter. I'll think about it after I've had that water. Okay, so again, chapter 2 is just read through You might get a couple of short questions from it in the sense of true or false questions or multiple choice questions, but again, there's nothing that is of such great importance that you have to specifically attend to it. Let's go to chapter 3. I just want to get chapter 3 on the screen for the students at home. And then we'll go to chapter 3 here in class as well. Chapter 3 is the first. Chapter 3 is broken up into 3 different sections because chapter 3 deals with communication. Verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Why is that important in your opinion before we actually go to the slides? Why do you think it's important for a salesperson? Somebody in personal selling. I mean, you're into sales. Why is communications is actually the essence of sales? If you don't have the ability to get the message across because your communication skills are not good, you're probably not going to be good in sales. As ons gaan net as 'n breek vat, kan jy gou vinnig net hier voor kom kyk wat jou punt is, hoor. By assignment 2. Right. Ek dink ons het al voorheen gesê in klas ook, your research has indicated that you are probably exposed 4,000 to 5,000 times a day to different forms of information via what you observe, what you hear, what you see, what you get in your phone, all different kinds of exposure. It's a lot of information to process. And we all know that although we have the ability to absorb all of that information, we prefer to store the ones that we enjoy most, that we think is more valuable. Therefore, the process of communication is a clear attempt to A, inform the customer of what you have to offer, the features, the benefits, the advantages of the product, and to persuade them. Why should they buy your product? Put yourself in the shoes of the potential buyer. Put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to sell to. Would you buy that product? Let that guide you in how you try to persuade somebody. Don't try and persuade a potential customer to buy if you don't believe in the product yourself. We dealt with that in the first chapter, those ethical issues that you are being confronted with. Right. The elements of the communication process is quite simple. You've got the sender, that's the salesperson who's talking, is giving the information. The message is encoded. In other words, in a verbal expression may be backed by some visuals or samples, for instance. It is decoded by the person who receives it, and how they react to it is going to, or hopefully should guide you as a salesperson as to what next question to ask, which is the indication that you have listened to the response. That's the crux of this particular situation. Not just you starting the process by providing information verbally or visually. That's where the noise and other distractions come in. Sometimes additional noise Like for instance, buying a car and then it's a V6 or a V8 engine, and the salesperson sits in the vehicle and he's explaining it to you, and he's revving the vehicle, and the noise that it makes, I mean, it sort of just adds to the hype. Some people would say, oh no, I can't drive through my neighborhood and the car making that noise. People would look funny at me. Other people would say, oh yeah, I'll be the man if this happens. The fact is, there are additional noises and visible things that add to that whole process that assist the receiver of the message to decode the message in the way that it was intended. And they will react, hopefully, in a positive manner. So remember the 7 steps in the process of communication. As you see on the screen there, communication is 55% nonverbal. And nonverbal could be a lot of things. Nonverbal is not just saying nothing. Nonverbal refers to the tone that you use, the pattern at which at your pitch. Sometimes some people have a very high-pitched voice. As a result of that, it affects your reaction as a potential buyer. So, how you use your voice is very important. Yes, George. Your non-verbal is your handshake. I mean, how you dress. Yeah, to get that first impression, whatever. We're going to get to that right now. No, actually, non-verbal is the second, is in part 2. The words that we use, how we speak, the tone and the pitch that we use, that's the verbal part of the communication. That's that. Yeah. 7% is actually what you say, the word itself. The manner in which you do it, the tone that you use of your voice contributes 38% to successful communication. Right. So verbal communication, which is this particular section is on, refer to the words that you use. Words that is important for the salesperson. If you use words like free, it usually triggers something. If it's an item that there's a chance that you might hurt yourself, the word safe is an important word. If you use this product for more than 3 months, you can actually save. Save is a trigger word for a lot of people. This is the best, research has shown that this is the best product in its range. That's a nice trigger word as well. So some words are trigger words for potential buyers. The pitch and the tone in which you then start your communication or conduct your conversation is equally important. Usually, it's an indication that you are slightly nervous if you talk quickly. A lot of people who are nervous or anxious, they do, and stressed, they do tend to speak more rapidly and maybe even in a high-pitched voice. Beware of that, because, I mean, the potential buyer can pick up on that. Listening, I think we have spent enough time on emphasizing the importance of listening to what the reply to your statement or question is. The type of questions that you use when you communicate. Try and find a balance between a question that just results in a yes or no answer initially, and it's common knowledge that a lot of salespeople ask a range of questions that always have the answer yes to it. So by the time that you actually ask that important question, subconsciously the customer, because they are in the process of answering yes, yes, yes to all the questions, they almost without thinking also answers yes to that particular question. Just be aware of that. The type of question that you ask is also extremely important. I'm going to get part 2 of the communication chapters on the screen now as well. I don't want that part of it. I want that part of it. Okay, for the guys at home, we've got about 8 minutes to go before the Zoom session finishes. I don't think we'll have too much trouble in finishing this section of communication. When we're done with it, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll finish at 11:45 because we haven't really taken any breaks in between sessions. And we've been going at this since 9:25. Okay? You can do it. Non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication refer to all these kind of things. Your eyes, how you roll your eyes, where you look up to the left, down to the bottom. And people don't worry about that. Okay? It's not, I'm not going to ask you, okay, if somebody looks, if a salesperson has his hands folded and he looks with his eyes up and left, what does that indicate? No, this is not going to happen. Okay, so this is just interesting to know that it actually has become such a science that you can study people's eye movements and from that get an idea of how they're going to respond or yeah. But again, people, especially now during the times that we find ourselves in COVID, most of the time you've got a mask on. It's very difficult to see, or sometimes to understand somebody clearly because of this restriction. Talking with your eyes. What do they say? The eyes are the winners to the soul. It's true. I can see if somebody's the Muslim culture, you almost only see the eyes of the woman. It's sad. I don't even want to go there because it just, let's rather leave it there. But the fact is, yes, it's very, it's even more important, therefore, if that is the way, if you're communicating with somebody like that, and you will have a Muslim woman sitting in front of you wanting to buy a car or wanting to buy a vacuum cleaner or something. And the only thing that you see is the eyes. And she has to talk and listen and communicate only with her eyes, basically, so to speak. So it's important that your eyes tell a lot of it. I know if my eyes are tired. I can feel my eyes are tired at a certain time during a week. We spend a lot of time on our screens, phones, tablets, laptops. So our eyes get tired. If your eyes are tired, the whole body's tired. And you come across tired as well. So make sure that that you are aware of that. Your body language is very important. That reserved, crossed arm kind of approach, the laid back in the chair kind of, the whole body language, especially if you're visiting somebody, you're in their territory, the way in which you conduct yourself. The handshake that you use. Which again is difficult now in COVID. But we've adapted quite quickly. Talking about COVID, I was again very amused with what happens in the American election debates, with what the current president, how he responded to some of those questions last night. Are you all tired of COVID? We've all had enough. This virus can now just take off and go.
Ja, eintlik weer reg geword is.
Yes. Yes, we are. But if you're the president of the United States, you don't make statements like that.
Meneer, ons president se statement voor
Ja. Dink hulle het onder die wat se naam in sal dit tyd groot geraak. Sal 'n woongebied groot geraak. Sal 'n gewoontetjies.
Meneer, met die vorige verkiesing het hulle mense omgekoop om die votes te verander dat die een ou wat almal gestem het nie wen. Toe vind hulle dit van uit.
Ja.
Jy het dan weer gestem. En nou sê hy, ja, so en so, president so en so, wat is die hele ontstel?
Mense sê, dit is ongelukkig een van daai dinge. Gierigheid, greed, is een ding wat groot struikelblok is vir die mensdom. And secondly, power. The power that position gives you to be the president of a country, to actually basically make and break as you wish. Okay, because that's why would you fight if you know that people? If I stand in an election for position, and people don't vote for me, it's a clear indication that they don't want me there. Why would I fight it? Why would I fight and say, but no, they rigged this election, and if you actually, what are you going to gain by losing an election and then contesting the results and saying it was a scam? They always do.
Hy was goed vir ons gewees, maar tot daar 'n ding uitgekom het van dat hulle gaan oor die visfabrieke se tenders of iets wat hulle mee gesmokkel en toe kom later die president en sy vrou met betrokke.
Ja, hulle twee is altyd redelik suksesvol finansiëel gewees, ja. En
nou is hulle op pad om te skei word.
En almal het altyd gedink, ja, dit was ek onthou ek het in een besoek in Namibië het ek 'n artikel gelees oor hoe suksesvol hierdie presidentspaar is en eintlik in hulle eie reg afsonderlik hoe fantasties hulle gedoen het en whatever ook al. En dit was way voordat al die nonsens uitgekom het. En ja, so anyway. So people, your non-verbal cues are equally important because that's the first impression. Remember, before you actually even open your mouth and speak a word about the product that you are there to sell, people see you and people greet you. They form an opinion before you have even spoken. The opinion they have will either be confirmed or withlaid based on the spoken word. And that's why 55% of sales already, 55% of communication relies on the importance of the non-verbal component. The spatial distance, I don't think we have a problem with that anymore nowadays. Some people still do, but then I just use my elbows because now I'm entitled to. There are certain zones that we prefer not to move into. I think we are aware of that. I'm not going to give you a sketch like this and say, listen, which are the different zones? Don't worry about that. How you dress, extremely important.